I'm back, baby. The goat is here. Farted a bit, you know? Full of gas. Usually comes out of my mouth, but other times it comes out of my butt, guys. Yeah! Haven't done one of these in a while. I've been busy, trying to make some money. Because I like money, because I need to eat, and go about and do things like a human being. That's what I do. Yeah. I've went to the pool again because I like swimming, because I'm a fish, guys. Am I a dangerous fish? Like a shark? Or am I a friendly fish? Or like a dolphin? Am I a dolphin or a shark, guys? Speaking of sharks, I did see a movie by the name of Jaws. That's not the song, but we all know Jaws, classic Spielberg movie. So I had a film event thing that they have in Vancouver with film community people and stuff. Good flick, but I mean, I've seen it before. I think I've seen like 2 or 3 times, maybe, perhaps, I don't know. But this time when I saw it, I couldn't help but think about the shark, that poor shark. All he was doing was being a shark in the ocean. That's where he lives, guys. Guys, the shark lives in the ocean. He's just being a shark, And then there's these people on the beach going into his world. And they expect the shark to be like, oh, you're just going to come into my neighborhood, frolic, lay about, throw your garbage everywhere, your cans and stuff. And you think I'm not going to be a shark? Doesn't make sense, guys. Doesn't make sense. And of course, there's that famous, the dolly zoom. I can't do it on a phone. I'll try in the edit, but it's not going to happen, And if you'll know it happens because then it'll be in this thing. If it doesn't, well, I failed and it didn't go well. But anyways, yeah, the dolly zoom, that famous where Brody's just sitting at the beach, and the one thing he was most worried about happens, and it portrays it so well, the way the camera just focuses on him, and it zooms in on him while having the background stay the same, the same. It's good. Oh no, I'm just letting farts out, left, right, and center, guys. Just full of bubbles. Maybe because I was like diving. I was diving a lot today in the pool. Maybe there's just like a lot of gas, a lot of bubbles that are just, gurgling and stuff, and just they want to seep out somehow. That's what's happening right now. But yeah, Jaws. It's interesting because there's like the mayor, who's more concerned about tourism for his city because like it's the middle of summer. He wants all these people to come out to the beach, have a good time, spend their dollars. And then there's Brody, the chief of police, who's thinking about the safety and well-being of others. That's what his job is. That's what his job is, right, guys? He's there, making sure everybody's safe and sound. And he's from like the big city, I believe. He's like from New York. New York, New York. He's a big city chief in a small town, right? He's a big fish in a small pond, guys. Wow, that's another layer to this movie, eh? Brody is a big fish. A fish out of water, in a small pond. Because he's like a chief in a big city, but he just has to come into a small town and police and stuff. That's interesting. And then there's like, I forget who says it, but there's like a quote in the movie where he's like, sharks are just like, all they do is eat, swim, and make babies. I think it's a scientist, right? I'm pretty sure it's a scientist the guy who studies the fishes and stuff, the sharks. Pretty sure he's the guy that says it. But that got me thinking too, though, because he almost sounds like he's talking about like some sort of ne'er do well, some person who just eats up all the food. He's just sucking up on our social services. This guy. He's just popping out kids like crazy left, right, and center. All he does is eat. He's a predator of some sort. He's not a contributing member of society. However, if he's a shark, and he's in the ocean, then let the shark be a shark, I don't know. It is interesting. It did make me think. Because on the one hand, like, maybe these beachgoers are like trying to gentrify this poor shark's neighborhood. They're coming in with their dollars and their kids and stuff. They want to put houses and stuff up so their kids can play safe. And what's the first before entering any territory, guys? Right? The first thing you do, is you send out a sentry of some sort. The chief of police or something to figure out whether it's safe for their people to sort of, inhabit. Yeah. The shark. It does, because it is interesting, because Brody is like this chief. He comes from a big city, right? So he understands, like, crime very differently the way these small towners do. He comes from a different, almost world, really, where crime is pretty common, I'm assuming, right? In big cities, you get all types of different offenses. People don't know who you are in a big city. The anonymity of it all. Sort of like a big ocean. So the big ocean, in a lot of ways, is like the big city for Brody. It's just very deep, there's a lot of space, lots of things in there. You don't really know what's going on in a big city. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows who you are in a big city, And in the ocean, it's the same thing, In a lot of ways, I can see how that can be scary for a small town, because, like, they know everyone. But in a big city, it's like it's like a really good breeding ground for a shark-like person, to just go about killing everybody willy-nilly, without actually getting caught, because, like, nobody knows who you are. And there's so many people. I know me. It's just, it's nuts, yeah. Whereas, like, a small town, you kind of know everybody, Everybody knows your business. So it's kind of safe. But the ocean, that big city, nobody knows who you are, You're just lying there under the surface, Sharks are just going to come out and just eat you. Be like, bro, this is all I do, man. All I do is just swim and eat and pop out more people like me. That's my whole thing. I'm a little chapped, Gonna drink some of this brown water. Speaking of brown water, I was in the pool and somebody had pooped. Somebody pooped in the pool and they had to evacuate the pool. Not because it was a shark, but because there was poo-poo water, Crazy. It's crazy what would make a bunch of people leave a body of water, right? There's only so many things. There's sharks, obviously, you don't want to die. And poo, guys. Pee, not so much. Everybody knows there's a little bit of pee everywhere. But poo and sharks, nah, son. Poo and sharks? Nah, son. Poo and sharks, bro? Nah, son. Poo, shark, shark, poo. Whatever. But you know what I'm talking about, though, Those are the only two things. Well, I guess vomit. I guess vomit, Vomit, poo, and sharks. Those are the three things. And if you look at that cat, two of those things are related. One is completely unrelated, guys. One of those things can kill you. But the poo-poo and the vomit, it can't kill you. It's just nasty. But that makes a bunch of people flee the body of water. Think about that. Think about that. Poo and vomit, we're running out. Shark, we're running. But it can kill you. That's why we're running. Wild, eh? One of those things are not like the other guys. That is the shark. Wow. Nuts. Yeah. Shark, poo, and vomit, guys. Poo-poo water, guys. Poo-poo, poo-poo water. Yeah. This is just chocolate, by the way. It's not actually poo-poo water. Would I drink poo-poo water? Nah, guys. I wouldn't drink poo-poo water. I wouldn't do it to myself. Look at my teeth, you know? Yeah, Brody, Chief of Police. Spielberg does a really great job of just like the whole theme of it just revolves around the battle between man and nature, right? I mean, trying to wrestle with this thing, this creature, and this safety of their community, you know? But it's interesting like how it does sort of relate to everyday life and how you sort of deal with dangerous elements. For example, I don't got an example, but what I was trying to get at is there's who else is in that movie? I mean, there's the scientist, right? I forget his name, but we all know he's a guy who studies sharks. There's Brody, the scientist, and there's that guy, the fisherman, you know? He's like, I'll catch a fish for you, you know? He's like that brooding character in the back. Maybe he's got like a drinking problem of some sort, you know? He's old. He's got like war stories because he was in the Navy. But then if you even look at that, there's these three guys essentially who are tasked with finding this shark. Three men. You got the chief of police, right? Tasked in charge of public safety. You got the scientist, right? Who tries to understand this entity, this beast, if you will, that the chief of police is also trying to catch and understand. And then you have the Navy guy, right? The guy in the military, who's also sort of in charge of like not really safety, I guess safety, but also they go in and like invade, you know, other places in countries. But it's interesting how like in the movie he talks about the story of how when they were on their way to nuke Japan, they get into some sort of issue. A bunch of the sailors are in the water for a bit, and then they just get eaten up by the shark. Nuke goes, blows up whatever city they was gonna blow up. But it's funny how like he's upset, the Navy guy. He's upset that this shark killed all his buddies. Meanwhile, they just dropped the most destructive weapon. in human history and incinerated millions of people instantly. But the shark, you know, just doing what a shark does in the ocean with no motive, by the way. The shark just killed a bunch of like, it's not that the shark had an in for them, you know, was their like mortal enemy. The shark was just being a shark and just like, oh look, here's a free meal, you know, he's just eating these sailors. But he, like this naval officer was like, he made an enemy. He personified this shark. Meanwhile, they themselves just incinerated millions of innocent civilians in Japan. Isn't that crazy? It was wild. When I was thinking like, wow, like just the lack of just awareness. Like, is the shark the monster here, guys? The shark's just being a shark, you know? But these guys just incinerated millions of people with the most destructive weapon, you know, known to man. Imagine. Wow. I mean, he ends up dying, you know? If you haven't seen the movie, I mean, spoiler alert, but he ends up dying in the end. Yeah, he's like, and it's funny because like he's so against like using the tools and the expertise. You know, like he doesn't like the scientists and the tools that he uses, or this city slicker chief of police who comes from who's used to policing a city where his skills would actually come in handy in a small town. Well, not a small town, but like in an ocean. Would it really? I don't know. I don't think it would. But yeah, I don't think the chief of police has any business. Also, why is the chief of police searching a shark, guys? You know, I gotta give it to Brody, because he's the police of the land, guys. He's not the police of the ocean. It's not his job. He's not a lifeguard.
I love you.
You know, why is the chief of police looking for a shark, guys? You know, what are we policing sharks now? That doesn't make sense. You know, doesn't make sense. He's a chief of police, policing people. He doesn't police animals, guys. Animals are gonna behave like animals. If anything, it should just come down to the scientist. You know, like it's his job to figure out why this shark is like doing shark things and then figure out how to catch it. But the chief of police, guys, why would everybody be like, yo, bro, we know like you're supposed to be policing people, but we also want you to police the ocean? Come on. It's a lot to put on his plate, you know? Jeez. But yeah, it's funny. These three men, you know, essentially tasked with trying to find this beast so they can keep their community safe, which is essentially like really the edge of humanity. Edge of humanity. It's literally like civilization and everything around it, which is like law, you know, chief of police, science, you know, the scientists, and then military, you know, like keeping the country or whatever safe. These are like sort of like the things that sort of work together in a lot of ways to like make it so that you have a civilization with these things, you know, law, science, and military. That's pretty much the bedrock of keeping all of this alive. Like the phone that I'm talking into, the lights, you know, everything is just, that's sort of what keeps it all together. And these guys, it's usually, I mean, I don't want to say it's like men, but historically it is sort of like that, you know. Laws are, I mean, for the most part, they still kind of are. I mean, they're predominantly in any type of like judiciary, it's typically dudes, you know. I'm not saying, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just, from what I'm seeing, I mean, obviously there's some countries where it's a little more 50-50 than others, but historically, you know, since the beginning of like civilization, it's been like usually dudes who are like making the laws, and then you have like scientists were for a long time also dudes, and then military, you know, well, you know, it's mostly, you know, hasta la vista, you know, it's just mostly that too. So then it's weird, you get this like paternalistic like, you know, dome, you know, over civilization. And then outside of that is nature, like raw nature. Wow, that like the ocean is a lot. The ocean is really that, if you really think it, because we don't even live there. Like it's one thing to be like have a civilization, and then you have land, and then there's also like predators up here as well. But like we have like some sort of understanding of our environment here just because we live out here, so we can sort of wrangle it. You know, we can control it a bit. But the ocean, we can't even breathe underwater. You know how hard it is, guys? Do you know how hard it is to breathe underwater? Have you ever tried breathing underwater, guys? It's tough. Yeah, I don't suggest anybody do it because it's hard. You know, you're not gonna be able to do it. I'm just saying, you can hold your breath for a very long time. You know, you might fart a bit, but that's about it. You know, you can't do nothing about it. But like land, you can live up here. You know, even if there is like predators and stuff around, you can sort of like manage. You can figure it out. You know, that's where the science comes in. You know, military security, then laws. You know, to keep everybody working with each other. You know, but the ocean, bro, we don't live there. We don't have any business being in there. And then you want these guys to figure out how to take out a shark, just a shark being a shark in the ocean. Wow, though. It also makes you wonder, like, who's, I mean, is a shark the villain here? Is a shark an antagonist? I don't even get that one. Really, is it? Or is it just like, what would you label the shark though? Is a shark really bad or evil? I don't know. It's just a shark being a shark. Who would even be the villain in Jaws? You know? How can an animal? It's weird, eh? Because you're like personifying this animal as though it has like intent or motive. It's just an animal behaving in like nature. It is interesting. Yeah, Jaws is a very interesting movie. What those three guys represent, you know, the mayor thinking about like the interest of like tourism and dollars over the safety of his like community and stuff. The poor kid who dies, you know, that poor mother. Poor mother. The shark. Shark, yeah, sucks to be that shark too. But if we are gonna personify the shark, I mean, what can you do? You know, we need to put the shark in shark jail. You know, there's no jails for shark guys. There's zoos. Ah, shark zoos. There's aquariums. You know, and they just like swim around. But that's about it. Yeah, I mean, with Jaws, what else was there? Jaws. You know what we keep thinking of though? There's like, you know, people with very wide jaws. You know, there's Zac Efron. He's got like a very wide jaw. You know, and there's Johns. You know, Johns as in like, well, not the guys who do the freaky dicky in the alleys. You know, Ocean's alleys, if you will. But the Philadelphia Johns. You know, the Philly Johns. There's those guys. And there's a Philadelphia woman with there is a Philly woman with a very wide jaw who's also a John. Yeah, you'll know who I'm talking about. Yeah, Jaws. It's kind of cool because it's the 50th anniversary of the movie. You know, it's a big deal. You know, I mean, it was like the prototype for big blockbuster movies, big summer blockbuster movies. And then like there's like all these documentaries and how like the whole animatronic shark was built, you know, which was such really like a big deal. It was like Spielberg's, I feel like it was, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was Spielberg's biggest movie, really. It really sort of like set him apart from everybody else. Yeah, the significance of that movie. Because, like, usually in, like, horrors, it's like a monster of some sort, you know? Like, rarely do you, like, see... I mean, there's, like, King Kong, big monkey, but it's still grotesquely large. Like, it's out of this world. It's abnormal. But a shark is, like, something most people can relate to if they live near, like, the ocean. It is sort of like a common... It's a threat. It really is like a threat for people who live near, you know, coastal areas where there are like sharks and what have you. But yeah, it's like, imagine making a movie where it's bears. You know, that's the whole premise. Like a bunch of families in RVs or like in the woods, you know, and the mayor doesn't want to close down, I don't know, the national forest or something. Because these like families because they want them to, you know, pay dollars and stuff for tourism. But there's these bears, you know. These bears keep coming around and eating up the honey and the kids and stuff. You know, but that's different though, isn't it? Because like a bear, remember bear lands, you know, we live in the same place, you know, so we can figure it out. We can manage it a bit better. But the ocean, like, how you gonna find a shark, you know, in the ocean? I mean, in terms of being like, if you're gonna go out though, it is kind of scary to get eaten by another animal though. That is terrifying if you think about that. Out of all the ways to die at the hands of like nature, being eaten alive is something most people can never really grasp, you know, because we're not like prey. We're we're predators. We're apex predators. You know, we live in nature, but we're kind of outside of nature. Like we're literally outside of it in a way, which gives us like this benefit of just not having to deal with, you know, the nastiness of it all. Like we're not all like always looking over our shoulders saying we're gonna get like eaten by like a lion or something, you know? Imagine getting eaten alive by another animal. Yeah, most people, I mean, no one can relate to that unless you survive like a shark bite and you're just like permanently maimed for the rest of your life. But that is, yeah, it is something. What a shark is. It's just teeth in his stomach, you know? And it just keeps swimming and it just eats, swims, eats. That's what's so scary about it, because there's like nothing. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're intelligent animals, like they can navigate and stuff. They got like, but for the most part, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but that's all they do, right? Just swim and eat, you know? And their teeth just like come in, come out, come in, come out. Just rows and rows, you know? You know, got type, and then there's a hammerhead shark, you know? That guy's, you don't want that guy around a construction site, you know? It's gonna be trouble, that guy. Or maybe you do want to. Maybe he'd come in handy at a construction site. Wait, what's that other? Remember Shark Tale? Wasn't Shark Tale? Was Shark Tale? That's the one with Will Smith now, right? Like he plays like some sort of like. Maybe I'm wrong. Like he's like a little fish. What's that scene where he's like, you know, at the car wash? Remember? Is it Shark Tale? Pretty sure it's Shark Tale. And there's like sharks in like in that movie. Yeah, sharks, shark, 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 yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've exhausted this one.
Hang on. Medicine.
But no painkillers, just Chrono.
I'm not giving that crap to my mom.